Four Nations rosters come out today, and there's some good news for the Utah Hockey Club and some not so good news. Actually, some surprising news that I would even dare say was a snub. Who's in, who's out? We'll talk about it when we come back. Robyn and I with you today and every day on the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast.
You are Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. I am former NHL voice Tom Callahan, joined as always by Robyn Leaño, a longtime team analyst. Between the two of us, and believe it or not, yes, I worked for this team when it was in Arizona as well. I'm a former Coyote. So we have some long-term insights, and we're also firmly planted in the now. And we thank you for making this podcast your first listen every single day. When you want to talk about the Utah Hockey Club, we're your source for news, notes, and analysis. So thank you so much for joining us. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Robyn, we're kicking it off today. We're talking about the Four Nations tournament, which we explained. If you didn't catch it, yesterday's show, you could pause this one right now and jump back to yesterday. We talk a little bit more in depth about Four Nations. They named 6 members to each squad back in the summer, and then Wednesday released full rosters. Sweden and Finland went first, then a couple hours later, Canada and the United States. So good news, bad news here. There are a pair of defensemen from the Utah Hockey Club on Team Finland, but I gotta say, I am honestly pretty surprised about what I consider a glaring omission from Team USA.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a good way to start. We can talk about the guys that got in a little bit later, but I feel like that omission is, to me, Tom, a very important thing to talk about. Plus, also just it's very upsetting in so many different ways, because we talked about Clayton Keller being a that definitely should be considered and should not likely at the time make the roster for Team USA. We gave you all the reasons why, and we really thought he had a good chance. And to see his name not even mentioned on the roster, to me, it rubbed me the wrong way, Tom.
So Robyn, I'm going to start here. I understand that Keller's played his entire career with this organization, and that might be seen as a negative.
Yes.
It shouldn't. If you're a good player, you're a good player. I don't care if you're on a bad team or a good team. But this year especially, here's why it's upsetting to me. In the last couple of years, up until the 21-22 season, Clayton Keller had been like a 2/3 point a game, maybe a half point a game player. But all of a sudden in that season, 21-22, 67 games, 63 points. 22-23, 86 in 82 games, so more than a point a game. 76 points in 78 games last year. And this year, 22 points in 25 games, 7 goals, 15 assists, and eating almost 19 minutes of ice a night, which is actually a little less than the previous seasons where Keller was at 20, 20, and 19. So, number one, a horse, someone that the team counts on. Number two, productive on a team that hasn't scored a ton of goals and doesn't have the best power play. So what is it about Clayton Keller that he ends up being left off? And that, Robyn, more than anything, is what I'm struggling with. How can you tell me that there was not a spot for him on Team USA?
You're right, and I think what amazes me too, and again, a lot of people tend to do what's more recent stats, but I also want to point this out, Tom, that again, this is still technically relatively recent. You mentioned the points that Clayton Keller has had in the last 3 seasons or so. 21-22, I believe, was that season in where Clayton Keller broke his leg towards the end of the season, and then missed an entire off. Obviously, in off season really was off season, but incredible recovery period during that off season from a broken leg. Comes out and has the very next year of a 22-23 season a career high season for him, and has continued that production ever, since. Like, it baffles me.
So here are the forwards from Team USA, just to give you context of who we're talking about. And
All
there
right.
are some obvious players that are better. That
Yes.
should be there. But so here is the complete list of forwards for Team USA. Matt Boldy from Minnesota, Kyle Connor from Winnipeg, Jack Eichel, Vegas, Jake Gensel, Tampa, Jack Hughes, New Jersey, Chris Kreider from the Rangers, Dylan Larkin of Detroit, Austin Matthews, Toronto, JT Miller, Vancouver, Brock Nelson of the Islanders, Brady Tkachuk of Ottawa, Matthew Tkachuk of Florida, and Vinny Trocheck for the New York Rangers. So I think there are a couple of players right there, Robyn, that I can say I felt like Clayton Keller should have been there ahead of. And there's a couple of I can make a case either way players, but there's probably 2 or 3 names on that list I automatically felt like, and maybe I'm biased, but I felt like Keller was better than and should have been better than, especially a guy who wears a C on his jersey. I don't understand how you pick Dylan Larkin, for instance, over him. I just don't see it. You know what I mean? And as a center, I think that makes you more versatile. You could play anywhere. You could play on the wing. You know, and I understand guys like Larkin, Brock Nelson, Matt Boldy, character guys who can contribute in other areas. Yes, you're going to need people to score penalty or kill penalties. And Chris Kreider's a power play guy. I get that, and I love Kreider. His production for me in fantasy hockey 2 years ago basically won me a title. But we're talking now. We're talking right now. And again, almost a point a game performance from the captain of the Utah Hockey Club, and he's overlooked.
He is overlooked, and you said it too. Like, of course, there are players on this roster who very well, deserve to be on this roster. You could take a look at your Jack Hughes and your Austin Matthews, your Jack Eichel, your Tkachuk brothers, whoever you want to talk about. Those are phenomenal NHLers who very well deserve to be on the roster, right? But I think even then, some of the players you mentioned that made it instead of Keller, you can make an argument, but at the same time, at the end of the day, to me, and again, it could be a bias thing because we've been covering him for so many years at this point. But
Vinny Trocheck, love Vinny Trocheck. However, at 31, and maybe this is a veteran nod pick, but it's not like Keller is 12 years old. 24 games, 6-6, -4 with the Rangers. Not having a great year. How's he there? I just don't understand it. I know he's a point of game guy in the past, but this year, and look, we've got 2 months till this tournament hits. Anybody can turn their season around. I don't see how you pick him ahead of Clayton Keller. I just don't see it. I don't see it. You're not convincing me.
Now, here's the interesting thing is, if this tournament were last year and this team was still the Arizona Coyotes, I would very know the reason, and I'd be upset about it because anyone on that the then Arizona Coyotes are always being overlooked because people did just refuse to exist. It was refused to accept that the Arizona Coyotes existed. But now we've got a new team who's got so much hype, and not to mention the captain and one of the best players on that team.
Yeah. They're a little bit of a darling, right? Utah Hockey Club's a little bit of a media darling, I think, or should be, or was. I don't know. Maybe they've slipped from that grace. Maybe the honeymoon's over. Maybe people are just over it now. Maybe. But there's no excuse to overlook those players to me. There's just not. I just don't specifically. I just don't see how you overlook Clayton Keller. I don't get it. I don't. There's other players that I had hoped maybe would get a look or some consideration, and I understand why they didn't. But because like Team Canada is stacked, I know it. And most of these teams are stacked. But I felt like Team USA, there was some room in the forward ranks, and Keller should have been in there. I would have listed him, like, to use an NFL term, probable.
Right.
He was probable for me to make this roster.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know. I know
Yeah,
I'm
and of
preaching to
course,
the choir. I know it, but
yeah, of course, and we've also said of the other possibles though, and like, and I think even that when we named all the players, like including a young guy like Logan Cooley and alongside Clayton Keller, we're like, okay, yeah, all of these guys should get a look, but out of all the ones, if only one goes, it's Clayton Keller.
yeah. And the other thing is too, I will say this, Robyn. Going back, and we're going to talk about the defense here. I know we're gonna get into that. We're going to talk about the guys that did make it. Deserved, right? I think very deserved picks. But and look, you weren't going to be a goaltender for Team USA because that is just absolutely a loaded position. I think almost anybody could have been a goaltender or had a chance to make it for Team Canada that was Canadian starting the year. I think Stuart Skinner played his way off the roster, but you can have those arguments. And the reason why I bring those up as examples, you can have those arguments. There were places where it was packed to the gills and there were places that it was wide open. And I just felt like Team USA probably would have looked a little different. But you know what? Like I say, we have 2 months to figure this out. And there will be some players who might be injured by then, who might not be able to play. You never know what's going to happen. So yes, there's a chance to get, called onto the roster. But for now, I'm upset.
Honestly, I'll get even more upset if one or two players go down and Keller's not the next phone call.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. If he's not the first injury replacement guy, yeah, absolutely, he better be that guy who's on the cusp. So it's like not getting a job in the interview. It's like, what else do I have to do? But I'll tell you who did get the job for Team Finland. We got a couple of Utah Hockey Club defensemen that are going, and we're going to talk about those guys next. And today's show is brought to you in part by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Tom Callahan, Robyn Leaño here with you. Thank you so much for joining us on the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. We're here with you every day during the week talking about the Utah Hockey Club. And right now we're talking about the Four Nations tournament. If you missed our primer on the Four Nations, and we're going to talk about it again once the tournament draws closer. It's taking place of the All-Star game this year. Finland, Sweden, USA, Canada round robin tournament. And you know what, Robyn, I'm excited about the fact that not one but two, which actually is a little bit of a surprise, but two Finnish defensemen from the Utah Hockey Club made the roster, and I am actually very pleased.
I'm with you on that. And what's interesting is these were two players that actually we didn't even mention on yesterday's episode. I think instantly, no surprise to everybody, the first Finnish player that I mentioned was Matias Machelli, didn't get named to the roster, but to see Olli Maatta and Jusso Valimaki get named to this roster, I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm like, oh, okay, we're getting somewhere here.
I think so. Maatta has a long international history. He was actually the youngest player ever to play at the World Juniors for Finland on the U20 team when he was 16 years old. So that was a cool little nugget I found out today. Long history, Stanley Cup winner. I actually did. It's funny. I was off on my soapbox about Maatta yesterday in the episode for different reasons, right? Talking about the defense.
Right.
But I think I outlined the case pretty well, and I don't need to make it again as to why he is so incredibly valuable. I'm calling him my defensive MVP of the team right now. So I'm glad Finland sees that. But you know what? Jusso Valimaki, that's an interesting one. He's been in and out of the lineup for the Utah Hockey Club this year. And I don't know if this played into it or not. I don't know if this was the thinking, but there are 2 Dallas Stars defensemen and 2 Utah Hockey Club defensemen. I don't know if maybe the thought was, hey, these guys play together. Maybe it'd be easier to pair them up defensively. I don't know. I don't know if that was the thought process at all, because I found it kind of interesting that you also grab both Finns off of Dallas's D.
Yeah, it really is interesting to see that. Taking a look, by the way, those 2 players were Mira Heiskanen and Asa Lindell. It is, I think, an interesting. Maybe you can make them too. It's like since they know well each other, as you mentioned, you can have them as those D pairs. Like, yeah, let's put you together. It just wonders to me who, the third of the 3 D pairs out there, which would be different ones. Looks like so it's
so you got Hakanpää from Toronto and then Ristolainen from Philadelphia are the other 2D for Finland. Yes. But so I don't know. And I suppose, look, some of these guys, and here's the thing about international competition, right? Is these guys play together on the national team, or maybe they played together coming up, and obviously they're all different ages, but some of them will have familiarity with one another from whether they're NHL clubs or their junior days. So it might be easier to make a fit here or there, but I just thought it was interesting. I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason to it at all, Robyn. I just thought it was kind of a unique situation where 4 of the 6 defensemen are kind of play together already. So,
I mean, maybe it is a coincidence, and maybe it's just that these are but the best Finnish D-men just at least 4 of the best Finnish D-men just happen to play for just 2 teams.
And I think that's also a really nice pat on the back. Like, again, we know how important Maatta's been, but that's a really nice pat on the back, and hopefully a shot of confidence for Valimaki.
Yeah,
that maybe now he'll be able to take an even greater step forward, and this will affect Utah Hockey Club. Also, by the way, which I didn't mention when we were talking about Keller, is perhaps he'll take that and use that as a, oh yeah, I'll show you. When that happens for a player. So you kind of hope
those are the 2 proper responses, right? If you make it, you're like, hell yeah, I needed this confidence, and and all of a sudden they play better. And if they didn't, it's like, oh, I'll show you. There is some negative responses out there, but those are the ones you'd expect to see, and hopefully that's the case. But the case of Valimaki, it's interesting, as in like bringing his name up, because when he was originally signed off of waivers from the Arizona Coyotes signed him from Calgary, I didn't know what to expect, and he instantly became a pretty crucial part to that Arizona blue line. And to see him stick around and be a part of this Utah, not as productive as the previous time I've seen him, but he's still up there, right? He's still being a pretty big part of it, especially knowing how, and I'm going to continue to say these words as like a broken record, how broken the Utah blue line is right now. You get someone like him that steps up. I think that definitely helped him a lot more on looking for that roster. It's like, oh yeah, you've made a major step. You are a leader on this team that's been struggling.
And I think his role changed too, Robyn. The first year he got to Arizona with Calgary, I mean, games played, yes, but not a lot of points. Plus minus wasn't great, little under par. Didn't shoot the puck a lot, but then comes to Arizona, 22-23, 34 points in 78 games, which is not bad for a defenseman, but a -10 rating. And the ice time jumped, had never gotten above 15:42 on average time on ice, went to 18:11. So the role increased, the production increased, but obviously the defensive 5-on-5 side wasn't there when you're a -10. The next year, which was last season, the points cut in half, 17, but goes to a +12 in 68 games. I'll take that trade-off. I think that is a defensive maturity step.
Yeah,
to be able to defend more in your own zone at the cost of your own production.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge part, being able to focus on being a lot smarter defensively and not allow and not turning the puck over too much.
Yeah, well, this year 1 point in 19 games and not a great plus minus right now. So I mean, it's not, as you mentioned, struggling. And
But again, I think factoring in how Utah's been playing as a whole,
right, which is not great. Let's be frank. I mean, the team is struggling defensively, and again, the injuries are there. Valimaki on a 5-6 role maybe is a different player for Utah Hockey Club.
very much so. So, I like to think that's the good reason. And then, as you said, hopefully this gives that Valimaki that extra confidence boost for these next few games down the road and or whatever, maybe leading up to that, just for the rest of the season, and saying, hey, my country thinks I'm good. I'm gonna go prove to everyone else why they're right.
Yeah, I like it. So we wish him the best. Hopefully everything works out. And you know what? I still think there's room for Clayton Keller in a Team USA uniform. So, Robyn, I want to ask you about when you learned to play hockey, because there's an opportunity for everyone in Utah to learn to play hockey all around the state, as a matter of fact. So let's talk about that here in just a minute. So how did you start playing hockey? Give us the Robyn Leaño hero or villain hockey origin story, because your jersey is such a duality back there. It's red and blue.
It's actually supposed to be a shade of pink back there, but it doesn't show as well through the screen.
No, it definitely looks red. It almost looks like Spider-Man. But okay, please adjust your set. That is pink. It's not red.
You're right. But so it's interesting because I feel like I've been really open about how I started playing hockey, Tom. When I did for the Locked On Coyotes show, the Grow the Game series, interviewing people and organizations in Arizona, focusing on growing the game of hockey. One of the guys I interviewed, president of the Arizona Legacy Pride Hockey Association. I was like, ooh, this sounds great. I'd love to join, but I live in Tucson. Little did I know, about 6 months after that interview, I would move up to the Valley. He somehow finds out, calls me and be like, hey, do you want to play this year? I'm like, I've never played before. I don't think I'd be that great. I don't have any gear. I can't afford it. They're like, no worries. We got a lot of sponsors. We were able to help people out because of all the interest from the Arizona Coyotes Growlers, Pride Growlers program. We're going to help you out. We got gear to donate to you. That's going to be yours. And we will give you a scholarship to join for this season. And you will be part of you'll join these clinics, and we'll all teach you. We'll all teach you. Don't worry about it. You're going to have some fun. And I've been hooked ever since. That was 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago.
I love it. It's a great story. It really is. And that's the important part, is hockey can be a little cost prohibitive. So when I started playing, 300 years ago, it was a lot of hand-me-down gear. It was a lot of loaner gear. At the time, my city where I grew up actually had a program where you were able to borrow some stuff, and that's how I actually ended up becoming a goaltender. It was because of that I was able to try it without sinking a ton of money into it. And so I think that's the important part, is for kids to just get out there, get on the skates, see if they like it, give it a chance. And so I love this program in the NHL, and I'm very familiar with this program from my time in Nashville. But the NHL has a Learn to Play program, and Utah Hockey Club is kicking its Learn to Play programs off in January. So if you have kids that are interested, and I know there is an adult one, it's not listed here. These are the kid ones, and I'll give you the ages here with these. But they're 6 to 8 week programs, and it'll give the kids instruction on the fundamentals, learn to play, and the age range is 5 to 11, but there are specific clinics for specific ages, so I'll get into that. But every participant, this is the cool part, Robyn, and to your story, they're given full gear to participate. So that's awesome. You do not have to worry about that. Plus, there's going to be players there, which is always awesome. So, all right, here are the regions and the dates. And all of these, by the way, you can log on and register through the Utah Hockey Club's website. Okay, in Ogden. So that one's going to start January 4th at the Weber County Ice Sheet, 5 to 9 years old in Ogden. Mill Creek at Mill Creek Common, 5 to 7-year-olds. That starts January 7th, 5 to 7-year-olds at Mill Creek. Another one in Mill Creek for 8 to 11-year-olds. That is January 7th as well. So there's 2 different sessions over there at Mill Creek. Utah Olympic Oval, that starts January 14th, and that is the full gamut, 5 to 11 at the Olympic Oval. And then Provo, yours starts in April. So if you want to learn to play in Provo, you've got plenty of time to sign up, and it is the full gamut, ages 5 to 11 at the Provo Peaks Ice Arena, and that starts April 19th. But you can register now, and I would absolutely register now as fast as you can, because don't dawdle. These spots will be gone. They're limited. Yeah. They will be gone.
Especially with the assistance that's given, that, as you mentioned, when you get that gear being provided, when you get all those other aspects, people want to go through that because it's an affordable way and an easy way to get your kid in this case, but also when the adult ones do becoming available, also yourself, if you're, of course, an adult listening to this, most likely you are, you get that opportunity too. It's really, really nice. Because I will say this too, Tom, like one of the things that I was told every time, for example, here in Arizona, when Pride Growlers would come up, you'd sign up. It was a nominal fee. It was like a couple $100, a few $100, but you get something. But for us, they gave that to you back to spend at the local hockey shop. So at the what's now Pure Hockey, was called Behind the Mask at the time, was now Pure Hockey. You get essentially $200 credit to get whatever you need. New sticks, new skates. What do you need? You can just use that credit there.
That would get you a junior stick now, I think. So that's the other reason why these spots fill up fast, is because the cost of the gear can be a little prohibitive, and not so much for the younger players. And again, you can always find hand-me-downs. Like Utah is a good hockey city with a good hockey tradition. People have been playing there for a while. You can always find used gear on the local market, which is nice. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's always eBay or some other places. But this is nice because it is your own set. It's new. It is, not pre-sweat in. So
yep.
That was always, for me, that was the coolest thing when I was a kid, is whenever I got new gear, which didn't happen very often, but when it did, that was the best day.
It felt great. This was like this stick that you guys see behind me. That was the first stick that I bought new to me. It was an intermediate size stick. That's my size, by the way. And it's an entry level, so it only cost me $100. But
only,
I know, quote only.
It's crazy.
It was still a little tall too. I still had to cut it down a little bit because I'm short. If you guys ever see me in Utah and you see someone who's pretty short, that's me.
Or if you can conveniently stand one person behind the glass and still see everything going on, that might also be Robyn in front of you. So that's all right, Robyn. Good things come in small packages, and that is certainly the case with you. So, but yeah, everybody get over to the Utah Hockey Club website as soon as possible and sign up, please, if you're interested. And again, do not hesitate. Don't dawdle is the word I used earlier. Because it will be gone, but it's a great opportunity. So very cool. And plus you'll get to meet some Utah Hockey Club players, some former Coyotes, and, just some folks in the area. And it's great instruction. That's the important part.
Yeah, the Learn to Play program is really going to a lot, and they're really and they are very friendly for all skill levels. Like they'll help you out no matter what skill level you're at. If you are, let's say you are 9 years old and you've been playing hockey already for 4 years, but you're just going to the program just to get some clinics in. Like, sure, that's like, you can do that. You can do these programs, but it's also geared towards the ones who have about to hit the ice for the very first time, and might have a little bit of learning to do here.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So All right. Well, I know everybody's catching this likely on a Thursday, unless you dawdled and then you caught it on Friday. But look for our Friday show. It's going to be the weekend preview. You got the Buffalo Sabres and the Philadelphia Flyers coming up Saturday. Now, know this: Buffalo likes to play at Saturday games as matinees. So you have late morning, you have brunch hockey on Saturday. Okay, 11 o'clock Mountain Time. Sabres and Utah Hockey Club. So keep that in mind. Saturday is an early game.
Ooh, brunch hockey. I like the sound of
Brunch
that.
hockey.
Hockey and mimosas. I love it.
There you go. So brunch hockey on Saturday. And then Sunday's still a matinee. Even though it's Eastern time, it's 7:30, but it's 5:30 Mountain Time against the Flyers. So that's dinner time hockey. But brunch hockey, Robyn, coming up on Saturday against Buffalo.
I like that.
That should be a lot of fun because now you're going to get Team Finland defensemen facing one of the Team Finland goaltenders, most likely in Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. So there you go from the Sabres. So anything else you want to toss in there before we wrap her up for the episode?
No, I think we touched on everything.
Good deal. So all right, Four Nations. They did not consult me for any of these teams that were picked, but I think I've made my feelings clear on this one. Let us know in the comments what you think, what you feel. Do you think it was a slight, or do you think, no, Clayton Keller deserves to be maybe, first player in waiting, I guess. And we'll take a look at that. So, Robyn, also, speaking of which, we should probably tell people where to find us on social media.
Yeah, you can find us on social media on both X and Blue Sky, on all our accounts on X at LO_NHL Utah, at Robyn_Leaño, and at Callahan on air. On Blue Sky, on the little butterfly, you can follow us at Locked On Utah Hockey, at Robyn Ice Time, and at Tom Talks.
Yes, and we are spending a lot more time. I feel like over on the old butterfly there, a lot of people are coming over in droves every single day. So
I'm starting to make my migration a little bit. It's a long process because, as I mentioned yesterday, change takes a bit for me. Takes a bit for me to adjust.
Well, not only that, but Robyn, I wanted to kind of do a quick scroll of my X timeline, and I discovered you can't when you've been on X for 16 years. I think I've been on there. Which is kind of insane when I think about it. But taking a look, I have like 20-some thousand tweets.
Yeah.
That's not going to be a fast move. It's just not. So I don't know. We'll figure this out, but we're making our way over there. So yeah, but I tell you what, and I could tell people are leaving because my numbers are dwindling by the day after they were growing significantly from doing this podcast. So, I mean, look, hockey Twitter's moving on over, and I get it. So,
yeah, I mean, I think I've lost about 100 followers in the last month or so. So,
yeah, that's okay though.
Yeah,
I mean,
you know what? That's okay. It just shows that that we're reaching a new era of social media, and we have to move and we have to adjust.
That's right. And I am not yet doing silly TikTok dances, but you never know. I might have to do that soon too.
We'll see.
Robyn's hoping not. I think everybody's hoping not, except for the few of you who really do have a heightened sense of Schadenfreude.
I mean, look at this. I think it's me. That's all Gen Z right there, and I'm at the very beginning, very, 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 very beginning of Gen Z. So like, even then, for me, it's like it took me a while to get onto that app.
Yes, that's fair. That's fair. But I do have an account. I just don't. All I do is watch videos. I don't actually post anything. But I don't know. Maybe I'll start. I'll start. Who knows? All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for the show today. And we thank you for tuning us in. And again, we'll be back with a weekend preview coming up on Friday as well. So thanks for checking us out. If you're on YouTube with us, make sure you subscribe and then click the bell so you get notified when we do drop a new show each and every time. Plus on the podcast, we are available anywhere you get your podcasts. And we appreciate you subscribing over there as well. If you like what you hear, tell your friends. Why not? Drop us a comment, give us a like. Those things do help us with the algorithm. and it tells the algorithm that you want more Utah Hockey Club content or you want more Tom and Robyn, neither of which is a bad thing. So we appreciate you all. Thank you so much. And we will talk to you next time on the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast.